Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Where the Children Play, titled Child of Woe. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves the track on the screen, Child of Woe. This is off of, I believe, the upcoming album. I could be mistaken. I think it's the upcoming album titled The House That Death Built. So we're going to listen through this track from start to finish. We're going to hear what we think. Let's go. This is the Foley at the start of this, right? Beautiful piano tone, though. But the strings are so ominous at the same time alongside the Foley. I mean, like, it's such a visceral sounding vocal performance. Because to be fair, and to be clear, I have reviewed Where the Children Play before. I've quite enjoyed my time checking through their music, you know. I think that the cutting sound of the kicks works well with the visceral tone of the vocals. Interchanged with the double tracked kind of to the really gritty distorted tones on the sides there, and the plug kind of the frenetic strings. It's a really interesting combination. I would wonder whether the vocals a little bit quiet in the mix. I appreciate what we're trying to do with the tone of it, and it's great technique. And I also appreciate those lead guitars on the sides here, the dun 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 dun, you know, the dissonance and the cadence of that is wonderful. But yeah, it's just I think the vocals might be a little bit quiet. Might need to listen to it in mono though, to be fair. And it's just, you know, before in the last part of that previous section, the last half of it, dun 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 dun. This is really wonderful layering there structurally. I was gonna pause it at that point, but fantastic double layering there. Just the power of that double tracking with that bass drop there, or that sub bass, is just wonderful. Such power with that, like a halftime breakdown. And just allow it to peter out like that. Allow the legato strings to sift. I mean, it's just... Okay, we're resolving on this. It's so sudden, just boof, like this. It's kind of hypnotic, mesmerizing, having those strings be the only thing that lasts, you know, and you're kind of holding on to those, wondering when things are going to finish, and then they just abruptly do with that held note. That fermata there on that chord is dope. We got lyrics to look through after this. Very happy with the song at the moment, by the way, but I will look through the lyrics, and we'll talk about this track more in the conclusion. And as promised, the lyrics for this track where the children play, titled Child of Woe, offer the house that death built. Encased in these four walls, these voices bleed me dry. This language is so vivid immediately, subdued outside my conscience, murder sanctified. So is it like being sort of like psychologically trapped in this place, like you're inside your own prison? Cleansed and boundless, cold, I long for fatal sleep. Oh, at this cradle full of woe, a casket dragged into the deep. I play the reaper's hand and give the earth my soul. Detached, displaced, destroyed, emblem of unity. That's kind of unusual. I'm not really sure what to make of that. In the midst and fog, another cross is hung. It's just very sort of heavy, isn't it? So unshut the lips and mouth, I uttered the dead tongue. Full on, what is this track about? I'm going to have a bit more of a read of this, you know, in case you've figured out already and don't want to spend another half hour of me doing that, and we're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Where the Children Play, titled Child of Woe. Now, what I think this track is about, like, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether to take it that they are the child of woe, that they're someone else's. They talk about the four walls and how it's going to keep them within. We talk about, like, a child and death and everything like that, and a chance of death across and everything like that, and waiting for light fading away and everything like that. I'm just not sure. It's just a little bit too ambiguous for me personally. I feel like I'd need more time with the lyrics to really sort of flesh them out, and I feel like that'd be a very long conclusion section or a lyrics section. So I'm gonna take my best shot at this either being a child that is either suffered or malnourishing, or something that is just having a really terrible time, or they are a child of devastation, something that was going to enact kind of like he talks about the festering flesh and stuff like that. Is this like an undead child who's come to wreak havoc on the world or something like that, like an unborn child? I'm not sure. It's a bit tricky for me, but either way, it's fascinating. They're a tremendous lyricist, you know, tremendous lyricist. And I think that they smashed it out of the park in this one. I think that with this track, the vocals were great. The style of it, that kind of almost Black Mirror-ish kind of stuff with the more sort of low-end growly stuff, and that final sort of breakdown bit near the end was wonderful. It suits the genre and style really well. It's very authentic for it. At the same time, I don't feel that it kind of takes away... Like, we didn't need more melody with the vocals. You know, I think it was absolutely fine. It displayed an intensity there, a furor. I'd say it was because of the style, a little more difficult to understand what the lyrics were, but at the same time, that's a lot of metal. A lot of the growly, shrieky stuff is difficult to understand, so that's no issue. And when I was sort of comparing the lyrics on the site as I was listening through the track, I could hear those words that were being sort of like screamed and shouted and stuff like that. So I think it's totally fine. I think that we expressed ourselves really appropriately for the stuff we were discussing. There was a lot of turmoil, and it sounded like a horrific situation in parts, like the blood from the willows and stuff like that. It's just wow, man. The imagery is so intense. Great work. Awesome. And it's just really solid vocal technique as well on that front. Sometimes when you do that kind of friar stuff, you can do it incorrectly and really hurt your throat and all your sort of like chords there, but I don't think we're going to have that issue. The track itself at 404 is really interesting. You have this Foley stuff there with this really kind of intense low end resonance eventually after like little tip taps and everything like that. There were lots of interesting sounds. It doesn't just come in with the instruments. You have this ambient nature instantiated for us to then come in with those guitars, bass drums, strings, and all that later on. And we had a really pretty piano harmony or piano melody at the start of the thing, which almost sounded like it was going to sort of predominantly be in the major key, but then we went to some chromatics or accidentals and it started getting a little bit sort of twisted. And then you had the strings come in, adding further sort of further sense of discomfort to it because of the interval choices they had there and how they harmonize with the piano parts. And then just eventually you have the guitars on the sides and then the drums and the bass, and it just builds and it just peaks, and it's great. The track has really elegant transitions between sections there. There's no rough edges to it. It's a very tight performance instrumentally. And I think that there's a great sense of like cohesion between the elements. But if I talk about like with verses and choruses, you get the story fleshed out. But talking about a few of the instruments I really appreciated was those keys at the start. I liked the eerie kind of ghostly tone to it. I think it sparked a sense of intrigue there. I thought it was a ballsy, bold sort of like move to start with majors. It almost sounds like we're trying to sort of like celebrate the existence of this child, but at the same time it's indicating that something is not quite right. With the strings, the sadness that was invoked by them kind of indicating that things are not really as they seem. I think this is a song where you listen to it and you go, okay, could this track have been better if we'd had our main sort of guitar-based elements earlier? And hell no. No, this was more of a journey that we were going on. This is artwork, and I got to show some love for that. I think that the foliage kind of ambient stuff initially with the piano coming in almost like a music boxy kind of effect there with the strings. It was wonderful. We played the piano really articulately. It was really, the actual key work on the right and left hands was solid. And again, just to comment on the strings, I thought they were nicely sort of resonant to mid to the high ranges there. It was nice to also have the kind of dancey bits going on in the second half of the bridges or choruses or whatever they were there. It was nice not to have all the strings all the time, but then they were there. They added a different angle, a different rhythm, a different pacing to what we might have experienced from other instruments in that part of the arrangement, added further contrast and fleshed it out. The guitar work was sensational here. There were a lot of sort of distorted chordal parts here, power chords, maybe even some major minor lead triad melodies, arpeggios going on there within the chorus section as well. There weren't any, I don't remember there being like an intense solo section. I don't think this track needed it. I think you wanted to provide a sense of spectacle for what is going on with the vocals there. There was some gritty rough edges with the distortion there. It was fizzy and spicy, and you got the intention that it was not there to have a good time. And it crushed alongside the bass that was underneath it, that was established as, you know, that lower end there, and it filled that role well, working with the root notes in a way that is very satisfying as a listener, especially for this type of music, while occupying a great sense of groove and consistency with the drum patterns, of which there were lots of different drum grooves with the cymbals, sort of kick snares and like interesting fills, and there were like little pauses and stuff like that. We were very comfortable across the kit, as well as with the guitars, as well as with the bass, as well as with the strings, as well as with the piano and everything else. We not only used foley to create unexpected sort of contrasts and like a really intriguing intro there, but you also had those strings at the end there just fading us out there, leading us out there. It was not too much of the same at any point. There was so much compositional diversity there that it was very pleasurable to listen to. We could not only write lyrics and a story that was meaningful, but we could also put a theme behind it that made sense, because if we talk about the theme, it was just incredibly beautiful at the start, but then you got into the lyrics, you understood the context further, and it became crushing, especially at that breakdown section near the end. We focused on those root notes and just really kind of like, it felt like the wave of Graviton Bomb. It was ruthless and cold sounding because of the tone of some of the guitar parts and everything like that. Ultimately, it was like you were festering alongside that rotting flesh, and I gotta admire the fact that we used initially very kind of like palatable, really pretty sounding melodies and harmonies and little key broken chord bits going into like a grand stage of just depression and angst, and it almost sounded like just things were just completely done, like there was no coming back from it. That was the feeling that I got from the music there. There was so many twists and turns, and there was changes in dynamic range and the intensity of the various performance part of the track, which made the song more interesting, but also kind of led you on a journey where you weren't really sure what was going to happen next. And because of that, the 4 minutes 4 went by really quickly without a note out of place. I think there was no filler. It was really well done. But it's just the studio recording, mixing and mastering now, which is also great. I mean, I wish the vocals were a little bit louder there in some of the early stages. I felt like they were swallowed up a bit by the guitar parts, but aside from that, the guitars, bass, drums, the keys at the start, the strings, and the ambient sort of follow stuff with the little kind of water plops and stuff like that with the low end resonance, it was great. You know, things were nicely phrased in the stereo field as well as the frequency spectrum with no resonant frequencies aside from with that earlier sort of like resonance in the subs there, which was done on purpose. There was dynamic range to this. It wasn't the same loudness the whole time, which was great, makes it more interesting, and It was still nice and loud without pumping though, but limiting bus compression were handled. I mean, it's really promising. They've got themselves a really solid, really special thing here. I hope they continue to capitalize on that, because thank you for watching my review of this track from an act named Where the Children Play, titled Child of Woe. And hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show us some love via the various social medias. And they'll be on YouTube as well. And stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.